Movies. While it might seem like they're not all that similar to classical artwork, the reality is both involve the same rules of composition, to the point where most movies either take directly from famous paintings or indirectly wind up with similar results. The breadth of this phenomenon ranges wildly from the actual use of paintings as part of the narrative, see the Thomas Crown Affair and its use of The Son of Man by René Magritte, to, well, coincidence. Edward Hopper's realist paintings, for example, are often directly referenced, while also being easily taken unconsciously by filmmakers with a good sense of composition. There are a ton of examples of directors utilizing this kind of art to make this kind of art. So let's do as the internet demands and list 10 of them.
You will ride eternal, shining and glowing.
Oh, Mad Max Fury Road, what lists can't we fit you into? George Miller's 2015 Insta-classic is filled beginning to end with some, frankly, pretty toit visuals, which are thanks in part to Miller's incredible pre-production work, which resulted in 3,500 storyboard panels that wound up forming the basis of the script. That's right, most directors would write the screenplay first, but not old Georgie. Nah, son, he's too busy being a visionary to care about your rules, man. Anyway, one of those storyboards must have looked quite a bit like surrealist Salvador Dali's The Elephants, which, along with The Temptation of St. Anthony and Dream Caused by the Flight of a Bee Around a Pomegranate. You know what? Never mind. Point is, he liked giant animals with creepy long limbs. In this brief, oddly enough, pretty surreal shot, we're introduced to the Crowfishers, who are only on screen for a few seconds, but leave quite an impression. Their stilts, which allow them to survive in horrific swampland, lend them the appearance of creepy, thin, elongated limbs that would make Dali so very proud. Just can we say too proud? I'm gonna say too proud. The Truman Show spends most of its runtime in idyllic Sea Haven Island and in the TV studio that tracks the every movement of Jim Carrey's eponymous hero. When the two finally intersect at the end of the film, Truman winds up contending with an optical illusion that leads him to his potential salvation, or heartbreaking mental collapse at the realization that he was right and his whole life has been a lie to benefit millions of viewers who all watched him go through puberty. Anywho, that illusion resembles Architecture au clair de lune by René Magritte, a name that we're going to be seeing quite a bit. Of course, Weir has the benefit of a camera to move around and fully explore the idea. You might also notice the significance of the moon in the Truman Show and its placement in Magritte's painting. If the moon represents our benevolent producer Christoph, then all you have to do is see what's waiting at the top of the stairs to see the inspiration in full. Full moon, you get it? Yeah, you get it. Now for a more recognizable and overused classical painting, Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper, which shows up in everything from MASH to Watchmen, not to mention so many promo shots. So many. Look guys, just stop it. Stop it. Oh goodness, stop using this painting. Oh geez. For my money, one of the best recent examples of this overused classic has to be Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice, wherein a group of hippies convene over pizza and briefly form a strikingly familiar image, which is immortalized in a photo that will potentially help Joaquin Phoenix's private detective character Doc in his investigation. Or not, it's all kind of confusing. In a film where food and how we consume it plays a subtle but important theme, Inherent Vice earns its use without jumping directly to the old Jesus and Judas connection. Instead, it's just one of those little touches that gives Inherent Vice its offbeat edge.
Are we talking philosophy?
Taking it back a few decades, but keeping with the biblical theme, Fritz Lang's silent sci-fi masterpiece Metropolis literally nabs its dreamy interpretation of the Tower of Babel from, well, the Tower of Babel. Lang's film mixes tons of biblical imagery with his vision of a sci-fi dystopia, but perhaps the most notable visual outside of C-3PO here has to be the new Tower of Babel, a massive structure that looms over the titular city. The tower is recreated more directly during Maria's speech to a group of workers, wherein she tells the tale of the mythic tower. Here we get a somewhat streamlined approximation of Peter Bruegel the Elder's 1563 painting. The mythical tower, of course, was meant to allow humanity to reach and communicate directly with God, something that didn't go over too well for those in the original story. In Metropolis, the tower continues to symbolize man's unending hubris, which inevitably leads to their downfall, not unlike the character of Icarus, also featured in a Peter Bruegel painting, 1560s Landscape with the Fall of Icarus. This one doesn't have a direct parallel to a shot in Metropolis, but I thought I'd sound smart adding it in. Next up we have the surprisingly surprise Oscar winner, Moonlight.
Moonlight, Best Picture.
This flick is full of striking imagery, but the most famous has to be this final shot of young Chiron shirtless walking down the moonlit beach. While I'd bet anything that director Barry Jenkins and his DP James Laxton came up with this gorgeous scene without looking to any 1950s Belgian painting for inspiration, man, René Magritte's The Evening Gown sure does carry a similar feel. Jenkins has the viewer constantly following characters, giving us the feeling that we're part of the scene, looking in on these intimate moments. Water represents Chiron's evolution as he moves through transformative periods in his life, while the moon also symbolizes Chiron's multi-layered persona.
In Moonlight, black boys look blue.
Of course, a painting can't turn its head to create a final flourish, asking us to question the audience's own sense of self, so whether or not this parallel was intentional, good job to Jenkins and team for taking this beautiful piece of art and evolving it into something more. Now let's take a gander at A Star is Born. No, not that one, although Lady Gaga freaking slayed, am I right? No, we're going a little further back to the 1954 version starring Judy Garland and James Mason. Drenched in Technicolor goodness, this classic musical is a visual feast wherein just about any frame could be mistaken for a painting. We wouldn't blame you for that mistake either because it's just that good looking.
Maybe you're not quite as sober as we both thought you were, but thank you.
Some of that visual splendor might have to do with director George Cukor's notorious perfectionism, which no doubt stole a little inspiration from 1,000 or 2,000 visual references. One of those might be 1883's Dancers Tying Shoes by Edgar Degas, which certainly bears a striking resemblance to this brief, perfect composition before James Mason comes stumbling on through. Dang it, Humbert, pull yourself together, man! Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette was a bit of a misfire when it was released in 2006, although it wasn't treated nearly as badly as its titular queen. Since then, it's become a bit of a cult favorite, with fans heaping praise on the film's anachronistic music, quirky characters, and Academy Award-winning costume design, which took certain inspirations from fabric and paintings of the time. Perhaps the most direct inspiration was the classic Napoleon Crossing the Alps by Jacques-Louis David, which is pretty overtly copied here when Kirsten Dunst's Marie Antoinette is looking out her window, yearning to be with her lover Axel von Fiersen, played by Jamie Dornan. Her imagination takes charge and Fiersen appears on horseback, striking quite the pose that's just missing a little bit of wind and a shorter actor to complete the illusion. Oh, and there's an absolutely choice fireball behind him for reasons. Probably because Jamie Dornan was so flippin' hot. That's it. Jamie Dornan on horseback, that's the tweet. Back in 2014, at a special screening of his 1974 horror masterpiece, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Tobe Hooper mentioned an inspiration for his terrifying classic that many of you probably wouldn't have guessed: Andrew Wyeth's famed 1948 painting Christina's World, which also inspired Terrence Malick's Days of Heaven, but let's talk about the Chainsaw movie instead. While no frames are exact matches for the painting, the overall look of the film comes close. And yes, I realize this isn't a scene necessarily, but here's Sally crawling on the ground. There you go, Pedantic Pete. Have fun. The color palette is, well, I mean, just look at this thing. You can definitely see where Christina's World met Leatherface's. Another notable element that may or may not have been intentional is the story being told in the painting itself. The real-life inspiration, Anna Christina Olsen, can't walk, much like Sally's aggressively annoying brother Franklin, who is confined to a wheelchair. That might be a bit of a stretch, but... oh wait, no, stretch is in the sequel. My Caroline Williams fans, where you at?
You're my fave.
As long as we're talking spectacles of sheer unadulterated terror, might as well take a detour into the twisted psyche of director Tarsem Singh, whose feature directorial debut was, well, it was a lot. Basically, Silence of the Lambs meets Inception, 2000's The Cell is more visual excess than anything else, and between you and me, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's a hodgepodge of visual influences, including what appears to be a pretty direct snatch and grab from Bram Stoker's Dracula, thanks to sharing that film's costume designer Iko Ishioka. One that really stands out for most viewers with a decent knowledge of 1980s Norwegian surrealism, you know who you are, probably recognize this shot, which Tarsem lifted directly from Dawn by Odd Nerdrum. Bonus knowledge, Tarsem had seen the painting while hanging out at the home of David Bowie, who had purchased it in Berlin in 1990, because of course The Cell has a Bowie connection. Anywho, for more cinema ripped directly from surrealist artwork, you can also check out Tarsem's 2006 cult favorite, The Fall. You'll thank me later.
It will be my honor if you consider joining us on our quest.
Technically, any Stanley Kubrick film could conceivably take our final slot. A Clockwork Orange notably nabs inspiration from Vincent van Gogh's Prisoners Exercising. The Shining contains a subtle nod to Goya's The Sleep of Reason Produces Monsters, and these creepy twins that watch you sleep every night were inspired by a photo taken by Diane Arbus. That Kubrick, he liked art, but the Kubrick film that springs to mind when you bring up paintings will always be his 1975 masterpiece, Barry Lyndon. Kubrick utilized the works of John Constable, Thomas Gainsborough, William Hogarth, George Stubbs, and many other 18th century artists. As you might have noticed, many of these paintings depict scenes lit by natural light and candlelight, and if you know anything about Kubrick's dedication to his craft, yeah, he had special lenses made by freaking NASA so he could literally shoot by candlelight. You know, for accuracy. Of course, there are a ton of movies and classic works of a more static nature out there, so what are some of your favorite scenes that brought to life famous paintings? Comment below and subscribe to ScreenRant for more, art history, I guess, maybe? Is that what kids are into these days? Anywho, how about this dissertation on the— oh, I'm out of time.